Hello and welcome. My name is Marina Kats, I'm an attorney, and today my guest is Elsa Arbitman. The reason why I have Elsa on my show often is because she has so much interesting information, and it is actually complementing what we do, because her information is about insurance and how to protect my clients, and also explain to my clients, maybe from the insurance point of view, what happens when, for whatever reason, the car that was at fault in an accident, and simplest case, my client is stopped at the stop sign and rear-ended my client, now doesn't have a coverage, and now my client has to wait for getting their vehicle repaired. Perhaps if they have it on their own policy, they can go and get it from their own policy. Sometimes they're driving an older vehicle and they do not have collision on their policy. And a lot of times they say, well, but they gave me the insurance card. And sometimes we're saying, well, unfortunately, even though you receive a valid insurance card and insurance does exist, the person who was driving the vehicle did not have a right to drive that vehicle. So explain please, of course, to our listeners and viewers, why somebody, even though they have an insurance on the vehicle, but the driver of the vehicle is not the person who is insured, and therefore the insurance company saying we're not covering, and my client can either sue the person whose fault it was in an accident, and unfortunately that would take a very, very long time. And even though we guarantee that we're going to win, we might not be able to collect because the person who is driving might not have sufficient assets to cover my client's injuries.
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you for listening to our show. Yes, there are times, unfortunately, if somebody's involved in an accident, they can show you an insurance card that looks like an active insurance card, and everybody assumes that everything is fine. However, there are nuances in the policies where coverage could be jeopardized. Sometimes certain drivers are excluded from a policy.
Well, let's explain that, because that's an important point, because not only sometimes the person who hit my client is excluded from the policy, sometimes even on my client's policies, without realizing they have an excluded driver. What do they need to do to make sure that this doesn't happen?
Yeah, no, of course. So a lot of times people want to exclude their children from their policies or somebody else who's living in the household. In the state of Pennsylvania, anybody who's a resident relative of a household or anybody who has regular access to a vehicle that lives in the house has to be either listed on the policy or excluded.
But they have to have a driver's license.
Yes, if they have a driver's license, they have to be either listed as a driver, because as far as the insurance is concerned, they have regular access to the vehicle, and a lot of times people are going to say, well, my kids don't drive my car, and you can't say that all the time to an insurance company. You have to look at the big picture. So rates either have to be collected appropriately for the premiums. So if a customer chooses to exclude their child from the policy, in order to exclude them from the policy, they, number one, have to show that they have liability coverage somewhere else with another carrier. Because the other thing that comes important with excluding people from the policy is all of the tort option, the uninsured, the underinsured, the medical. In the state of Pennsylvania, anybody who's involved in an accident, they have to have their medical bills covered by where they reside. A lot of times people have no idea that happens. They're like, well, why? I'm not at fault for an accident. Why should my insurance pay for my medical bills? Well, that's what the state of Pennsylvania dictates.
And this is one of those rare cases where I am completely in agreement with the state of Pennsylvania, and I'll explain to you why. And I explain this to people in the simplest way. I say, think about this much. In some cases, it's easy to figure out whose fault it is in an accident, right? When you're stopped at the light, you got rear-ended, easy, okay? You're going straight, you have a green light, somebody makes a left turn in front of you, easy. Sometimes two cars collided at a traffic light, and each driver saying they had a green light. If you have to wait until you determine whose fault it is in an accident, unfortunately, then there is a problem because nobody can go and get treatment. So I think the fact that Pennsylvania selected no fault to follow, I think it's a good thing. That I am big proponent of. I think the limits are too small, and that's what I want to encourage everybody. And I'm glad you brought it up. Is instead of having $5,000 regular med pay, which is necessary to be eligible to drive the vehicle, I always suggest to increase to 10, 15, 20, whatever you could do. Is there a big difference in the premiums for that?
It depends on how many drivers you have. It depends on how many vehicles you have. But like, if you go from 5,000, then there's 10,000. But if
One car.
One car. 10,000.
One driver.
Yeah. So you're talking about maybe like $5 a month.
Here, see, and then in the end of it, you save yourself a lot of money in aggravation, and you'll be able to see a doctors for a longer period of time and get a better treatment. So
Absolutely.
that's very, very important. Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted you about this exclusion. If you do not have somebody specifically excluded, but they live in your household and they drive your vehicle, what happens then?
They have to be listed on your policy
And
as a driver.
Okay, if they're not listed on the policy as a driver, but you do not have them specifically excluded in your policy, they just reside there, and there was one of this rare occasion when you lend them the vehicle. Would it be a problem then, you think?
I mean, there's so many different nuances that will go in the claim. That was this the first time that this happened? Are there any other evidence during the time of the application, depending when they got their licenses? If it's a newer policy and you knew the person had a driver's license in the household and you said no to that question, that could be something where you lied on the application and your whole claim could be denied. If you're a long-term customer and your child just recently got a driver's license and you forgot to call your agent and add them, they'll probably give you the benefit of the doubt and pay for the claim, and they would then add the driver onto the policy. Some companies will actually backdate the driver from the date they got their license because
That makes sense.
it makes sense.
That makes
So
absolute
they could research and they could find out the actual date of the issue of that driver's license and send you a bill. And sometimes that could be 2, 3, 4 years worth of coverage, and you have to pay it because you didn't disclose it. So to say if it's going to be covered or not, there's so many different things that go into play. It could vary as far as coverage, but if it's a new application, you knew about it, you said no, they could turn around and deny the claim.
In my position always, you cannot control what the other drivers do. You can control what you select on your policy. And I think in the cases where the other driver is excluded, or for the next time, we're going to leave the issue of the oldest New Jersey policy where they have $1 a day policy and many other nuances of it. We're not going to start now because we cannot have too long of the show. People have a short attention span. The only thing what I want to do is finish it up with, if the other driver who's at fault in an accident excluded from the policy or insurance company doesn't have a coverage, you can always protect yourself by selecting on your own policy, obviously uninsured motorist and underinsured motorist. And my question to you is it a very expensive premium or it's not for the uninsured motorist? And again, obviously there's so many nuances, how many cars, but just to take a simple one, somebody 40 years old with 20 years of experience and wants to have one car on the policy and wants to have uninsured motorist.
It might be as little as $20 every 6 months.
So there is absolutely no reason
Not
why
to
you
have
should.
it.
So here's another good advice. You know, many years ago there was a column in, I think it was New York Times, and and she was giving good advice about housekeeping. I think we're good giving you good advice what to do in an accident and how to protect yourself with a proper insurance. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.